Gators do grab a commit over the weekend for the class of 2023. It's a JUCO from East Los Angeles College, 6'5", 255-pound defensive end edge rusher, formerly a quarterback at the high school level. And I think his first year at JUCO obviously boomed up in size. The Gators gave him an offer this past weekend on a visit, and he is officially committed. Were you guys able to do any research or know much about Quincy Ivory? Seems certainly like a depth play, but, certainly want to give him his flowers as well.
Seems like a depth play, upside guy you're going to have to. He's a former quarterback, so he's going to have to need some work at the position. But he got 12.5 sacks while playing out there in Los Angeles, has 3 years to play. Size and athleticism, he fits the bill that in that perspective. But you want to bring in guys, just looking at his offer sheet, there's a lot to be desired. I think we're the only Power 5 school that was really after him. But, we got roster spots that we do need to fill that you can't carry over to next year. So don't mind them filling in. Would have wanted that to be more of a guy with maybe a year to play to fill that spot. But we'll see how it all plays out. Not down on the take, but definitely not going to hype it is where I'm at with it.
It has 3 years to play. I think he's enrolling on July the 3rd, if I remember correctly. So a guy, we talked a little bit about him last week, but does join that class of 2023, similar to the way that Ty Bowman joined the class late last year out of the JUCO ranks as well. But Quincy Ivory will be joining the University of Florida football program here in the next couple of weeks. In sad news, the Gators did lose a commit, a guy that we got alerted to towards the end of last week that he would be flipping to Georgia. But running back Chauncey Bowens, a guy that Florida has had committed for a while, was on him early, has been blowing up the last few years, does take an official visit to Georgia, announces in front of everybody that he is going to flip his commitment. This one hurts. It stings. It's a tough loss.
Big L.
But Silk, want to get your thoughts. Obviously a 5'6" guy, but obviously you've been following him for a while. So what are your thoughts there?
Big L. I view Chauncey. He's not ranked as high. I thought he should be ranked higher, to be honest with you. He's in my opinion, a top 10 running back, extremely high ceiling. We jumped on him early, got him in September last year. Thought we had a head start. We did have a head start. And you also got a Gator head coach there at Benjamin, so you think you got a lot of things in your favor. Kyer went to Benjamin. It's just a Gator atmosphere down here in 561, especially around Benjamin. So I thought we had some, a lot in our favor, and then we started getting a little smoke, like you said, a couple of days before. I hate getting bad news. I share the good news quick, but
yeah,
Nick hit the group chat like, "Hey, you guys hearing any smoke?" And I had to just drop the the atomic bomb of it. Yeah, it's happening, man. So you don't want that to happen. I'm more concerned right now about the running back board. I don't know where we at with Jared Gibson.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're into it. We'll get an official visit. He's visiting, right? There's some communication going down. So we are recruiting him, but I don't know if we're a big dog in that recruitment. I know Texas and a lot of other programs that are recruiting him are willing to go over and beyond for a running back. And I don't know if that's the same when it pertains to us in NIL. So it's going to be interesting to see what the board is looking like. I know Jordan Lyle was a guy that they valued before Kanan Daniels committed. He's committed to Ohio State now. And Jordan Lyle's out of St. Thomas Aquinas. So that's a possible guy in the running back room. And then you have Micaiah Danzy, another running back who's, to me, more of like a scat back, all-purpose back type of guy. But there's some, that's a drop-off.
Mm-hmm.
Keep it all the way a bean if those are your two guys. Now, if you can find a way to get Jared Gibson, then that more than makes up for it. But if you're going to go down to Jordan Lyle, who I do like both of those prospects, don't get me wrong, but there is a drop-off in talent. And then you're losing that drop-off of talent that one of your premier backs to a rival. So it hurts twice. You feel me? Not just a decommit, but also he's going to a guy that you're gonna actually have to face this kid. So that part stinks. So we'll see how it all plays out. But that's where I'm at with it right now. Georgia's off back-to-back natties too, and maybe going for a third, bro. Just a reality check for us Gator fans, bro. It ain't gonna be. This ain't the only battle we had with Georgia. We won some. This is one we lost. This is also the first decommit or flip, I would say, from Florida that was a dagger. I don't remember. If I'm wrong, let me know. But I think this is the first big flip in Billy's regime.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. We do have Blake Alderman waiting in the green room for us, so we can talk a little bit about him. I know Florida offered a running back yesterday, but let's get Blake Alderman on the show. Blake, friend of the program, friend of the show. Appreciate you coming back on, brother.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Blake, what do you do, man?
Just out here. Had to do daddy duty today. I was in Gainesville all day Sunday for official visitors. Came home last night. The house is a wreck. 4-year-old just atomic bombed the house. So I get to since I was there yesterday, and she was with Brooke was with Winter. I get to clean up the mess from the weekend. So fun.
Good. Does that work the other way around? If dad
Absolutely
was watching.
Not.
Okay.
You catch L's no matter what. It's like on Mother's Day, you get like a bouquet of roses.
Talk about it.
Days. Father's Day, you get boxers and socks. That's how it is.
I get barbecue grill kits, and I don't even barbecue no more, Blake.
Those are
vegan and all.
Those are called hints. It's like, hey man, we're still eating meat, so here you go. Here's the stuff you need.
Yeah.
You may not,
cook
but
us
we
dinner.
are.
Yeah. You changed your life, but we still vibing over here, Pop.
Awesome. Looks like I'm signing up for something awesome and great here as I get ready for my wedding and a family. Fantastic.
Yeah. Good luck.
Blake, obviously you heard the end of our discussion there on Chauncey Bowens. Is this just a situation where Georgia out recruited Florida, or what's kind of the backstory of obviously defending national champions and everything else, but seemed like he was 100% locked in, according to Keith Niebuhr a couple days before that visit. So
yeah, Chauncey, we got a chance to talk with him at the 7-on-7 last Wednesday when he was there at Florida, and he's 100% committed. But in the same sentence, he turns around and says that Georgia's a real threat. And I think that this was a situation where whenever he visited back in January, I think it was, and he was in Athens the first time, there was a lot of buzz that Georgia was a big player then. He was going to continue taking visits, and when you look back in hindsight, there's obviously signs that were on the wall that maybe you ignored the first time around. He's talking, earlier this year, Bama, Georgia, Ohio State official visits. Guy pops up at Tennessee, pops up Miami, starting to take these other visits. When you start to see, a guy that's like, I wasn't that heavily recruited early on. I want to take some visits, enjoy the process. But then you're adding more visits on top of the handful of visits that you had there. You start to see that, man, maybe this guy isn't as solid as what he would say. I think that, Georgia has felt really good since that visit. Like I said, there had been, off and on talk of watch Georgia. Georgia's the big threat. That was the school that I think most people were keeping an eye on outside of Florida whenever he was committed. Takes that official visit. I think Georgia has felt really confident all along with him, just after getting him there on that visit, and that could be something that, through talks with the coaching staff that he had on that visit early this year to where it left them feeling really good about it. I think Georgia heading into the official visit was more in a, they think that they could flip him. He's given them maybe some vibes that could have happened previously. Would he do it? Would he make it public? Would he finally go through with the hints and the way that he was making them feel about it? And he did that, and I think that you guys hit the nail on the head. I think it's just Georgia's the hot team on the trail right now, man. Back-to-back national championships. They've got running back pedigree. Just it's something they can pitch to kids, and I think that's just it's one of those situations to where you're battling against a back-to-back national championship. Kids are going to want to be a part of that. I mean, look back to when Alabama was really, really rolling, kids that, even weren't a take at Alabama, they'd have an Alabama hat on the table, just because they were, being recruited by Bama. So I think Georgia's starting to get in that realm of, where they can kind of pick and choose who they want. And I just think, unfortunately, that's the situation that unfolded here for Florida.
What's Florida do at the running back position? I know Stacey Gage was a guy that Florida was recruiting a while ago. He just committed to UCF. Jordan Lyle from St. Thomas Aquinas is a guy that Florida's been recruiting. Florida obviously does have Kanan Daniels committed to the class, but Florida does need two running backs in this group. But where does Florida go from here?
I'm not so convinced that running back is going to be a major need for them. Like you said, Kanan Daniels is in the class. Could some other names pop up down the line as they continue to evaluate guys? I mean, running back is one of those positions to where, you've got South Florida in your back pocket. There's always one or two handful of running backs there in South Florida that have a strong senior year and they start to explode on the scene. That usually happens every other year. I think at this point, Florida, they've got 5 guys on the roster now. Cam Carroll will more than likely move on due to graduation. Montrell Johnson, I think, is someone where they're keeping an eye on. Will he go pro? Will he return? I think a lot of those questions will be answered on how the season goes. Could it be a situation where Florida just starts to evaluate more running backs now, maybe circle back around and see some senior year tape on, a guy like Jordan Lyle, like you mentioned, Stacey Gage. I think that Stacey Gage was someone that, had Florida as a finalist. I don't know how hard they were pushing for him, heading into that decision where he made there. So is this a guy that, at St. Thomas Aquinas, it's a big place to put your name on the map. If he has a good season there, could Florida turn the heat up later on? We'll see. Is there a guy that they maybe go back in the film room, break down some film, start looking at some other guys, someone pops up? That's another thing where we'll see. Could Florida just be okay with Kanan Daniels rolling through this year, look through the transfer portal, kind of like what they did with Cam Carroll and the JUCO guy, even though he wasn't a portal guy? I mean, there's still, I think, a little bit of different directions where Florida could go here. So I think that maybe a portal guy is where they look into if someone doesn't pop up down the road there. But, as of right now, I haven't heard any names where they're going to pivot to. I know that they're really excited about Kanan Daniels. They're really going to, he's taken visits. He went to Michigan State. I don't know that there's really a worry about Michigan State coming out of that visit there. He'll actually be at Florida this weekend for his official visit. So I think right now they're really happy with Kanan Daniels, but we'll see if anybody pops up down the road. There's, like I said, nobody on my radar right now.
Yeah, and I know that Elton McCaskill, a guy that we thought at one point would have been really nice, icing on the cake, kind of looks maybe a little bit more of a necessity, but Florida certainly doesn't have any shortage of options that are out there. Stoke, I know that you talked a little bit about this yesterday on the roll up, but the Gators hosted Chance Robinson, wide receiver out of St. Thomas Aquinas. He's a Miami commit. I know Florida was recruiting him heavily. To me, it seemed like that Miami commitment came a little bit out of the blue a few months ago, but he visited Florida this past weekend and then released the top three of Penn State, Miami, and Florida. How would the visit go this weekend, and what are Florida's chances there?
I think Florida has a fairly good chance. they have a fairly good chance with Chance. He's was a guy that's coming after the official visit. He's out there, you catch up with him. He says that he's still got maybe a little bit of a final decision to make. I don't know if that's, just pretty words that he's putting out of there to the media. He's obviously got an official visit to Miami coming up there on June 23rd, so they're going to get the last say there. I think ideally he wants to take these visits. He was just at Penn State on the weekend of the 2nd, Florida last weekend. He'll be at Miami coming up here in a couple weeks. I think he's going to, see what things go, how things go on these visits, listen to the pitches there. I know Penn State coming out of their visit, they felt like they had a fair shot. I know Florida feels like they have a fair shot there. I think the fact that DJ Lagway's in the class and Florida's maybe got a little bit more answers to the future of their quarterback room. They maybe don't have those answers right now on their roster, but I think whenever you got a big-time player like DJ Lagway, and that's a guy that Chance Robinson has been talking to for quite a while since DJ's been committed. So, I think Florida has a fair chance there. From listening around, I think Penn State feels like Florida's the team that they're maybe watching the most to be a threat to Miami. I'm not sure how Miami feels. You would think that an in-state guy, you'd probably feel Florida was more of the threat there just because, again, an in-state guy and you've got SEC player right there. Chance really likes the track record that Billy Gonzalez has had of producing guys there. Billy Gonzalez has recruited down there in Broward County for a long time. That's been an area where he's got a lot of ties to. He's known head coach at St. Thomas Aquinas for a couple years there. So Billy Gonzalez has those ties. He's got a track record, at least seems to still have the interest of Chance Robinson. And I don't know that this was just the guy that's taking free visits just to take free visits. I think he's actually going through these visits, actually listening what these schools have to say. I was a little surprised, too, when Miami did land him. I know that he has taken a lot of visits to Miami over the course of especially in the spring. He was there quite a bit. So I think that Miami needed someone kind of to be the headliner of their class. You look at their class, there's a pretty big gap between him and the rest of the guys in the class. I think they needed that big win. And I think when you've got a guy like Chance Robinson, who was a regular on their campus, I think that was a guy that where you can really make that statement win on the trail, a guy that was at their spring game, had been there a bunch. So I don't know that the door is completely closed with him. I don't know this is a situation where, like Jeremiah Smith, the 5-star Ohio State commit, he's taking visits. I still think that he's going to be a tough flip. Chance Robinson, I see him taking visits too. I don't know that he's someone that is as tough of a flip as a guy like Jeremiah Smith. We'll see. Miami's going to get that last visit. They could completely come through and shut things down, and really kind of lock him up there in that last weekend. But I do think that he's keeping his ear open, through these visits, and they're not just free trips.
I think he dropped the top 3 yesterday with him dropping the 3 emojis, and he spoke to some other outlets saying that he has a decision to make. So
Right.
this
He
is a
said
second
final
decision.
decision after
Right.
the visit yesterday. He says he's still got a bit of a final decision to make.
I like
That's
that.
what you love to hear.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you're
It's
a
not what you
Miami
love to
fan.
hear if you're a Miami coach.
Right.
Yeah. I have a question. So, like, Florida had 3 receivers last year. You've got Isaiah Williams, who I think is a good receiver locked in. How many do you think Florida needs to get in this class? And then I don't know what the passing game is going to look like. So, what's the balance of? And it's probably different from guy to guy. Of okay, I would love to come play with DJ Lagway. That looks exciting. And then you watch Florida on the field, and they run the ball 65% of the time, and you're like, do I want to play in this offense? How much of it is guys like Jeremiah Smith, I think, has said, I want to see what the team looks like. Another guy said, I want to see what the team looks like. And if I'm a Florida coach, that's not what I want to hear. If I'm recruiting you as a receiver, I want you to say, hey, look at DJ Lagway. Come play with him.
Right. And I think that's where a situation where, I don't know that there's any high expectations for Florida season this year. Obviously, the games have to be played. You never know how the ball is going to roll. But I think if you're Florida and you're their coaching staff, you want to try to get this bulk of this class wrapped up heading into the season. You want to have it's always easier to hang on to a guy than it is to have to flip them outright or something. So I think if you're Florida, I think 3 makes the most sense. They've already got Isaiah Williams in the class, who's not a big body wide receiver, but he's not a little 5'11" kind of slot guy. He's someone that I think could kind of play between the 2 spots. You can move him out wide. You can move him in the slot because he's got the speed. Jeray Hawkins is a guy that Florida really likes there in the slot. He was there this past weekend. He had a reported 4.2 40 at Ohio State last year. So this guy is, next weekend he's not taking an official visit anywhere because he's running the national championships for track when he was at IMG. So, you've got a guy that's got legit speed. I thought it was cool because you've got Billy Napier, who's got a wide receiver background. You've got Billy Gonzalez, who obviously has a wide receiver background. And I thought it was a cool pitch that Florida was able to make to Jeray Hawkins to where, Billy Gonzalez sees a little bit of Kadarius Toney in him with that wiggle and that speed. And Billy Napier sees a little bit of Jalen Waddle. So you've got 2 coaches that can kind of name drop some pretty cool guys in there. So I think that was something that Jeray really liked. He was pretty upfront in saying that, yes, he has a top 3 of Penn State, Florida, and Miami. He said that Penn State and Florida were the 2 that stand out the most to him right now heading into these visits. He'll visit Penn State on the 23rd. That's the team that I had been watching the most is Penn State, just because they had been in there a little bit longer. He's been there a couple more times. I'm interested to see. I've heard some things pop up of, there's a lot of people at Penn State that really like him, and there's some that are a little concerned on the size. You've got a smaller wide receiver, so there's always going to be those concerns there. Me personally, I think if you've got a smaller wide receiver, but you've got someone that's that fast, it's fine. Just get the guy out there. Florida wants to get faster in their wide receiver room. I think he checks off all those boxes there, but we'll see. Again, you've got another guy who's taking a visit. I know everyone wants these answers right now in June, but some of these guys just simply want to take all their visits and listen to the pitches they have to take, whether it's, being wined and dined on visits or legitimately going in and seeing what these schools have to say. But, I think Jeray Hawkins is another one. Chance Robinson, I think Florida has a fair shot at. I think that Jeremiah Smith, at least in my book, I don't know how Florida feels on that. That's someone that's going to be a +1. Whether you have 3 wide receivers committed already heading into the season and you somehow, some way can flip Jeremiah Smith, you're not telling that guy no regardless. That's a +1 take all the way. So I think 3 is probably where Florida needs to hit. Do they go into the portal afterwards? I think that's possibly something they do. But I think 3 is probably the number that you'd ideally want to see them hit at.
Yeah, I got a couple questions real quick. So I think it ends up being 4 just because of this. You end up, I think we get 3, and then you wait on Jeremiah Smith or JoJo Trader. Either one of those guys, I think, if they want to come, you got to take them.
Absolutely.
What is your take? I had a take on the show for a couple of weeks now when the official visit started that the vibes are slowing down. Kids aren't popping on official visits. What's your feel? Somebody that's covering this and that are at the official visit. What's the energy like from across not just at UF? I seen Miami had one of their biggest weekends historically. Florida State's hot right now. They just had a big weekend, no commits on campus. Outside of Georgia and the hot programs, what's the feel nationally when it pertains to kids popping on commits?
There's always differences there. I know USC that weekend of the second, they had a big weekend and they got some guys to pop there. I think Penn State did the weekend of the second too. It just depends on the situation. I don't know that. I think generally that the percentage of guys that are committing on these visits is lower, and I say that because most of these kids now, they want to set an announcement to set their commitment date. They're going to drop the edits of, my top whatever.
Well, Blake, I have a top 36 and I have the edit ready.
But here's my commitment date, man. And so you have to, it's all about maximizing your social media presence. And I think that that's a big part to do with it. Sure, there are kids that do pop on visits. It happens. I just don't think it's as widely seen as what we've seen in the past. And I think that's because kids are trying to maximize their brand with announcing things, drumming up some interest there, announcing that commitment whenever they do, whether it's just simply dropping something on social media, whether it's hopping on 247's YouTube page, CBS HQ, doing it on ESPN. Look at my dog back there making a cameo on the show.
Shout out to the pup, man.
He's been out there scratching the door.
That's the real
Please don't.
Show, that'd be fantastic.
I'll have to
if he starts dropping the deuce, man, you'll get our monetization taken away if he starts pooping, man.
That looks like a poop sniff if I've seen one.
But I think that it's a situation where guys are really trying to maximize their reach of making these announcements. Again, it happens. You've seen Penn State have those weekends. You've seen Georgia land Chauncey Bowens on the visit there. But I think that most of these kids are really trying to kind of control the narrative of their announcement. They're trying to, put it through their own name, through their own social media account, trying to drum up things on Instagram Live, on social media, doing it through different streaming announcements. So I think it's a lower percentage that we're seeing, but we'll see. I mean, there's still a couple weekends left, but as of right now, I think it's a little bit lower.
Blake, want to ask you a little bit about tight end recruiting. Florida has obviously they had Caleb Odom on campus from Carrollton, Georgia this weekend. He's ranked as on the On3 consensus as the number 69 overall player. Florida's recruiting him. Walter Matthews, who's the 105th overall player. Amir Jackson, 122nd. Jonathan Eccles, 129th. Florida seems to be, have a lot of options here at tight end. Where do you think that ultimately ends up?
I think they want to take two. I think that's ideally what they want to do. And if you look at all the visits that are set up this weekend, all these guys that are really Florida's top dogs at tight end, the Jonathan Eccles, Walter Matthews, Eric Carner, Amir Jackson, those guys are all taking their official visits. And Caleb Odom, even though he's being recruited more as an X receiver type guy, I don't know that he's really got the size of tight end, but he's someone where they've talked about, when Caleb Odom visited last weekend, Billy Gonzalez, who was actually there on staff when Kyle Pitts was there, was able to show him the size that he came into the program with, what he looked like whenever it was time for the draft, all of his stats and all those types of things. So I think that's someone that maybe could take the Kyle Pitts type role where, Kyle Pitts was playing receiver whenever he was like a freshman or a redshirt freshman here at Florida, and then eventually grew into more of a tight end. We'll see if Caleb Odom is that same boat. I think that they're recruiting him predominantly right now as an X receiver, and they'll see how his body grows down the road. But those other guys, I think Florida, again, two tight ends is what I feel like they want to take. I think they're going to have to find their answer of the pecking order of who can you realistically get out of these official visits. You get to spend the entire weekend with these guys. I think after you host, all these guys over the next couple weekends, they've already had some on campus. Eric Carner left campus last weekend saying that Florida was his leader. Walter Matthews, he seems fairly torn between Florida and USC. I know that he's been to Florida a lot, SEC ball. He really likes Russ Callaway. That's the coach that he mentioned that he has the best connection with. I was weird. I thought it was weird whenever he had mentioned USC because a guy from Georgia is mentioning USC as a finalist. His dad actually works a lot in LA. So that's where the connection of USC comes through because his dad is out there a lot. He really liked his time out there, but anyone is going to like their time at LA. I think they take kids like the Lakers stadium when they're out there. USC is, LA is cool for a reason. So I do think he's legitimately torn right now. I know that Florida has felt really good for him for quite a while. So I think he could make a decision soon. Eric Carner seems like a guy that's going to take some more visits. He'll be at A&M this weekend. He'll be at Iowa next weekend. Those were the two teams that Florida was already watching mostly heading into his official visit here. So we'll see if they can change the tides there for Florida, who's already leading for him. Jonathan Eccles is one that I'm not too sure where Florida stands at. He's committed to Tennessee. I don't know that the door is completely closed with him right now. He's just at Florida. They seem to have some decent footing there. He's going to visit USF, which I thought was kind of a weird school to visit. But, head coach at USF was the former offensive coordinator, I think, or something like that at Tennessee. So there's the connection there. We'll see. But I think that right now Florida ideally wants to get an answer, maybe not a public commitment or a silent commitment or something, but at least have an idea of where they're at with these guys because they're bringing their entire top tier into the tight end board and through campus this month.
Where does Florida sit with Justin Denson? I know that he's a guy from a cornerback from Rhode Island, visited campus this past weekend, said that he may be on campus again this upcoming weekend. I know he got an Alabama offer. I know Silk's been high on him for a long time now. Where does Florida sit? I know that he had been on commit watch. Is that still something that Florida fans should be looking out for, or does that Alabama offer change things? Or
no, I don't know. I think he's a guy that I think a lot of his offer schools want to see him work out, and that was kind of the reason why Florida wanted him to come back this Wednesday is when he's supposed to be there. They're having their 7-on-7 that day, but they're also doing like a camp too, kind of running simultaneously. So the 7-on-7 is at the IPF and the practice fields out there, and the camp side is over at the Swamp. So I think that he's a guy that they wanted to see work out. And I think it's pretty telling that a guy that, he says Florida leads. He said Florida has led for a while, since back in April, I think, when he visited. So I think his interest in Florida is legitimate, So he's a guy that wants to work out. So I think it's pretty telling that, here he is coming a couple days after the official visit just to work out so Corey Raymond can see him. I know Corey Raymond does like him a lot. I think that's the chance for him to to work out is more of a chance for the staff collectively to see him work out. Because whenever you're on the road and you're going to see these guys during spring practice, you can take all the film in the world, as an assistant, but the head man likes to get his own evaluation. So that's a chance for Billy Napier and some of these other guys, Austin Armstrong, the defense coordinator, these other guys that are involved in the coaching staff, to see a guy like Justin Denson too. So I think he's someone that a lot of those schools that have offered probably want to see a little bit more from as far as working out, whether that's, maybe sending in some tape, continuing to watch him in the fall season when things roll around there, or if it's him coming to work out for them in a camp. He's got some official visits that he's had set past Florida. I know Oklahoma's been one he's had set. He's set one to Michigan State, but when I talked to him yesterday after on the Sunday part of his official visit, his visit seemed a little bit up in the air. He wasn't sure if he was going to do the Oklahoma one that weekend of the 16th. Sounds like Michigan State was still pretty well set for the 23rd, but he could be a guy that could kind of change course, want to take some camp visits, whether it's at Alabama. He's going to be back at Florida this Wednesday, so we'll see. But I do know that Florida wanted to get a little bit more research.
They get him back on campus again on Wednesday. They got to get him to if they like what they see. And
sure. I think there's a fair shot of that, because I think that Denson's interest in Florida is legitimate. He's had Florida leading for a while. A lot of respect for Corey Raymond. So it's telling to me that this is a guy that was just here Sunday, flew back to Rhode Island, is now flying back out to Florida just to work out for Corey Raymond.
We gave him DJ PJ's flight pass. But the Bama offer was weird that it came while he was on our visit. Shout out to recruiting and T-Rob and them boys, man. It's all chess. There's definitely chess going on.
And
yeah, that was one where I think he said he got it like right as he was pulling into Gainesville.
Yeah, that's dirty work, Blake.
Oh, that's just a coincidence. So that's certainly
it's a cold world.
They didn't know.
They put him on commit watch, and then shout out to Bama.
You're upset not so fast.
Right.
Blake, another name I know that's visiting campus this week, and Florida seems to be trending. I'm not sure if they're trending as the leader, just definitely seem to be rising in his commitment, is Wardell Mack. I know, right now, if you look at it, a lot of people would predict him to LSU, but is coming on campus this weekend. I know he's tight with Corey Raymond. What's the word on Wardell Mack? Top 30 guy, top 50 guy?
I think LSU is probably still the smart pick, but I know LSU is kind of pushing the, we could fill up at your position. And I don't know if that's just, genuinely telling him to, hurry up, or if they, are kind of trying to put a little bit of a squeeze on him. I don't know that, for Florida, the names that I'm tracking in the defensive backfield that I think are really the top guys right now at cornerback is Jamari Howard, the guy from down in South Florida. You got Xavier Mincy there at Daytona Mainland. That's another guy that is listed as a safety, could very well play some safety. But Corey Raymond sees him being able to be an outside corner. And then Jalen Crawford, the cornerback there out of Parkview there in Georgia. Those are the three top names for me. And I think that a guy like Wardell Mack is probably maybe like a B-tier guy. But those B-tier guys, you have to recruit them very hard because you could miss on a guy in the A-tier. So you always have to make sure there's not a major drop-off. But I don't know that Wardell Mack is a guy that's really, really like high on Florida's board. Obviously they're recruiting him. They're going to bring him there on the official visit. He'll be at Texas after he's at Florida. He was just at Florida State. I think LSU is still a smart pick because, as far as I'm concerned, man, it's like science. If a guy in Louisiana that LSU wants, where do they go? They usually go to LSU. Florida State seemed like they made a big visit for him whenever he was there. I just don't know that there's really any big traction going for Florida right now. That could change after you spend a couple days with him on the official visit. But I just feel like as far as guys that Corey Raymond is really all in on, I just don't know that Wardell Mack is one of those guys right now.
All right. And this is another name. I know that Florida's also looking at Teddy Foster out of Cardinal Mooney down there in Sarasota. I know that he wants to visit Florida, UNC, Miami, and I know Georgia wants him to visit. Do you? I know he was in Gainesville this past weekend. They did a big
Monday last week
Sarasota, Manatee County tour of a bunch of different schools. Much about him?
I do. I wouldn't say I know a ton about him because he is still kind of new to my radar. But this, actually, it was Wednesday. I take that back. This past Wednesday, he was back on campus there. He worked out in front of Corey Raymond, guy that Raymond really likes him. He already had seen him in the spring whenever he went by spring practice. That's when the offer was extended. Teddy Foster's been a popular name on the recruiting trail this spring. He's already landed a lot of offers. His sister had just graduated from Florida. I think it was the day he got offered. He was just there that previous weekend because his sister graduated from there. So he's a guy that I think the in-state appeal of Florida is something that's interesting to him. He's very interested in taking an official visit. I don't know if that's something that I, at least right now, I haven't heard his head up yet. I don't know if that's something that maybe materializes here this coming weekend, or if he comes back for an unofficial for Friday Night Lights and then takes an official in the fall. I'm not really quite sure what his timeline is right now. And I don't think he quite knows yet either, because he's gotten a lot of these offers. And I think the attention is something that's a lot for him to, kind of wrap his brain around right now. But Corey Raymond really likes him. I heard that whenever he camped in front of the guys this past Wednesday, they were all really impressed with him. Teddy Foster seems like a dude. I know that people were sleeping on him early this year, but I think a lot of people are starting to wake up. So I think Florida's in a good spot right now for him. I know that the DB board in general, it's very deep, so it seems like names continuously are being added on that DB board. So maybe it's kind of hard to get, a real set of, where guys fit there past that top three guys of, like Xavier Mincy, Jamari Howard, Jalen Crawford, but I think right now it's still evolving, I guess is the best way to put the DB board. But Teddy Foster is the guy that impressed the staff when he camped last week.
Love it.
Nice.
Silk, Nick, any final questions?
Yeah. Offensive line recruiting is one that we all monitoring. I've been monitoring. We got two guys at the position. Do you think Seldon Stapleton get it turned around? Like, we've been dealing with the offensive line struggle in recruiting and getting elite guys for a few regimes. Do you think they get that corrected?
I think they have a shot too. If you land an Ethan Callaway, a Fletcher Westfall, an Ori Williams, some of those guys in that group there, I think that, a lot of people will be very positive on where things are going with the offensive line board. Jordan Seaton is another guy there, even though I think Alabama had a big official visit there, but, he really does like Florida. I think if you can get 1, 2, I don't know if 2's being greedy there, but, 2 guys out of that board right there, I think it really changes the perspective a lot. Mike Williams was on campus this past weekend, the former South Carolina commit. I think Florida's in a really good spot for him coming out of that official visit. Faber Edwin is a guy that I think is a bit of a sleeper, but he's a 6'8", kind of a project. But if you're going to pick a project, you're going to pick a 6'8" project that can move, that you've already worked out. So I think that that's a good one there. I think a lot of these other guys that you're taking, the Mike Williams, the Faber Edwins, any other guys that pop up down the board, I think the fan base in general will be a lot more positive on, those guys potentially being in the class. If you can land 2 guys out of that group of, the Oris, the Callaways, those types of guys. Callaway, I know, visited that first weekend. He was just at Georgia this past weekend. I think it's a battle between the 2 of those. LSU seems like they're lingering around in there somewhere. He's really taking his visits. We'll see when things pop out from there. Fletcher Westfall, I think Clemson is the team that I think everyone should be watching right now. He was just at Georgia last weekend. Florida will get their shot to host him this weekend. Ori Williams took his first visit to Florida there June 2nd. Went from really not knowing anything about Florida because he had never visited and really not having him on the radar to a top 3 school there for him. He's going to come back there on July 29th. They're having their grill in the Ville, their little cookout there on campus. So he's going to be coming back for that. And Jordan Seaton, they got on campus twice in the spring. I thought they got some footing, but there's been some Bama buzz for him coming out of that official visit. How long he wants to continue to take things and play out, I don't know if he's going to take more official visits this month if he stretches them into the fall, but I think Florida needs to land some of those guys out there for, really to look like things are turning around there on the trail on the offensive line.
All right.
Any punting guys? Any punters being recruited right now?
I don't know. I used to lead those guys to TG because he was the big kickball fan. So I guess Rudner. We need to teach Rudner to like soccer and punting more now. I need him to fill that void for me.
Hey, me and Jacob are looking for time off. It's been a long baseball season. That's what we're looking for. We're not looking to Australia, unless our companies want to send us to Australia. I will cover punting recruiting.
Now, if they were doing that, I would take that one off.
Yeah,
that'd be your cross.
You guys would see me tweeting pictures with kangaroos. I'd be all over that.
I love it. Well, Blake, we appreciate your time this morning. Let everybody know where they can follow you. I'm sure they already do, but let everybody know where they can follow you.
Yeah, at Blake_Alderman. That's my Twitter handle. You know, I'm at Swamp 247. We're, you know, putting stuff out there from the official visit weekends. We're there every Sunday. We'll be at the 7-on-7s there they have on Wednesday. So recruiting doesn't sleep. I don't really get to sleep much these days either. So, you know, it's going to continue to be a busy June for us over there.
I love it. Well, Blake, thanks so much for coming on the show. And we'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Thanks a lot for having me, guys.
Awesome.
Already.
Thanks, brother. Blake Alderman of 247. Gentlemen, any thoughts on any additional thoughts on recruiting?
Yeah, the miss on TJ Moore was a dagger to the recruiting room, but I think we still have more than ample opportunity to make up for that. Harley Gilmore is another receiver recruit that's going to reclassify. He's from the same team, the Polka team, as Austin Simmons, so I expect him to reclassify from 25 to 24. I think some of the sites still have him at 6'1". He's about 6'3". He's doing a very good job this offseason on the camp circuit, but he's going to be a guy. Outside of that, you look at Jeray Hawkins and other guys mentioned by Blake. I think the receiving recruiting is going to be just fine. Chance Robinson is another guy. We're going to be just fine at receiver. I'm not going to ever stress receiving recruiting. As long as Billy Napier in charge, I think we're going to be able to work that out. But TJ Moore was a miss, but I think we can make up for that. I don't know where we at with Caleb Odom. But if we can land him as well as a big wide receiver on the outside, that would be a good makeup as well for the TJ Moore miss.
Well, let's talk about Odom. Talk about Odom real quick. Odom, you probably saw the video that he posted on social media. Good on him, because like it's an embarrassing look, but I think the photos that Florida's been putting out have been fantastic. So hat tip to the creative team over
they monsters on that side for sure
at UF. But trying to get the Jumpman logo jumping with cleats on plexiglass, not a great move, not a great thought process for the move, and then obviously the execution turned out as you would expect, jumping with cleats on plexiglass.
Yeah, it's a tough look. I know Miami fans got a laugh at it. I know John Ruiz got a laugh at it too.
That's why we're going to flip their player.
Stock's still in the dump. Still don't have financials. Just a tough look.
Come to that segment, Dan. How is your retirement fund in Life Wallet looking?
As of the other day, we were down 54.05%. I haven't looked today.
It's Life Pocket.
But I'm sure we'll
Dan,
be down
you know
again.
what? Take a day off. Take a day off from looking.
Wallet.
Enjoy your Monday.
Just put that change in your pocket. You'll need a wallet for that.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to work additional Mondays in my life because of this failed stock. Shout out to the guy in the comments too, saying that Chance is not flipping; he's just playing a game. Plus, y'all offense going to be terrible this year.
Sounds good.
Grammatically, a tough sentence to read out loud, but you know,
they offense struggled to cross the 50 last year. You know? Van Dyke was a top 10, top 15 first round pick, and he's most likely going to be doing something outside of football when this season is over with. So Miami offense is got a lot to figure out. They fired the offensive coordinator after year one as well. So you guys figure that out, and you're taking 3-star quarterbacks named Judd the Dud, and we have signal callers like Lagway, who Chance Robinson really wanted to play for, and play with.
Yeah.
So shout out to that.
But while you're here, new King_God, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button.
What a name.
Click on an ad too while you're at it. Help us out. Keep the program rolling.
Subscribe to the channel, man. Show some love.
Subscribe while you're here.
While you're here hating.
Yeah, shout out to Harrison Sanchez. Miami's going to finish 97th in the ACC. All right, boys.
Let's help Stadium and Gale out.
Help Stadium and Gale out.
The podcast notably is invested in Life Wallet, so we need to keep the lights on. Click the ads. Use our codes. We had to make up for Dan's terrible investment.
Terrible
with
investment.
Company funds.
But unlike Life Wallet, Stadium and Gale has been
man.
profitable each and every quarter.